Hello, I hope everyone is doing well today. Today's flight is going to take us from Providence, Rhode Island to New York JFK aboard the Majestic -8 Q400. It's a beautiful airplane. I just acquired it not too long ago. I have about 33 hours on this airframe, and so by no means I'm an expert, but I'm getting better. Right now I'm just going through the startup flow from the cold and dark state. This is the Pro edition of the package. Yes, the software comes in a couple of different flavors.
Bank angle.
Originally I bought the flight or the pilot edition and then decided to upgrade to the Pro. It had some extra features that I thought would be useful, like failure scenarios and different things a little bit more realistic to true life aircraft. Just testing the lights. Everything seems to be working properly right now. Our cruising altitude is going to be 10,000 feet. Flight level 010. Stick shaker seems to be working correctly, and the second one as well. We're going to adjust the heading for the takeoff. We're going to be taking off of Providence runway 5, and the winds are from the southeast tonight, so we're going to be landing in JFK on runway 4 left. So that's going to be our flight plan. We're going to take off. The route of flight is going to be PVD VOR, the Providence VOR, to Norwich VOR, over to Calverton VOR, which is in Long Island, and that's going to be not too far away from JFK at that point. So we're just initializing all the instrumentation on board. Entering the zero fuel mass and the fuel on board for the performance computer. Alright, so the flight plan is going to be KPVD, which is the Providence Airport. And we're going to anchor ourselves at the PVD VOR, which is 115.6. That's going to be, obviously we're not going to navigate to that VOR because it's so close to the airport, but it is going to be our anchor point. And I'm just accelerating the video here just so that people don't get bored watching me pushing all the buttons. But I'm entering the flight plan into the flight management computer. So the plan looks good. And I inserted one gap before the JFK, the final routing point, because we're going to be expecting some vectors. So this flight, we're not going to be on ATC control for this flight. So we're just going to be navigating ourselves, and at some point I'm going to be amending the flight plan to provide self-vectoring to the airport. We're going to set up nav 1 and nav 2. This is the nav 2 radio. We're going to set that up for the Providence and Norwich as a standby, and nav 1 is going to be set up Norwich and Calverton as a standby. Testing the TCAS. Everything looks normal. The radar is going on standby. Everything looks good. So I'm just dialing in the takeoff speeds and performance data. So V1, VR, V2, then what's called the V-fry, the flap retraction speed, and the V-climb. Setting the altimeters on the PFD and the altimeter readout. The MDA is going to be 1,080 feet, and that's going to be our acceleration altitude. Starting engine number 2. ITT is alive. Fuel flow is alive. RPM is coming up. Starter cutout. Oil temperatures in the green, and oil pressures in the green. Engine number 2 started stable. And it's spooling up, looks normal at this point. Do the same thing with the engine number 1. So fuel flow is coming up. ITT is alive. Oil temperature is in the green, and the pressure is coming up. And I just heard a starter cut out. And we have a stable engine number 1 start. So the batteries are looking good. The DC buses are all looking great. We have 26 volts DC on all the main buses. Testing the hydraulics. Hydraulics pressure and levels look good. Rudder test, elevator test, everything looks normal. APU can come off, the main bus tie is off, and I'm just setting up the ice protection and the bleeds. Circuit breakers are good. And we're ready to taxi. So the after start checklist, external power APU is off, main bus tie is off, ice protection is set, rudder travel is good, no steering is on, auto feather is selected, engine reading is set for normal takeoff, 90%, batteries are checked to normal. We're going to be setting flaps to 5%. Aux standby PTU pumps are on. Hydraulic pressure is checked. Hydraulic number 3 and elevators are checked. And we don't have any caution or warning lights. Flight instrument and radios are set. Altimeters are set and cross-checked. That completes the after start checklist. Everything looks good at this point. It's actually a pretty chilly day. The weather was okay today. As you can see, we have some broken clouds. The weather at Providence is actually very light winds, 10-mile visibility, a few clouds at 3,000 feet. In New York, the winds are still light out of the east. Visibility is 10 with light overcast at 3,700. So it's very likely we're going to be hitting some IMC conditions on the way there, and we'll just have to wait and see what it looks like. So our route of flight is going to take us from Providence to Norwich. Then we're going to fly across the Long Island Sound into the Long Island, and we'll intercept the Calverton VOR and over to Deer Park VOR, and from there it's just a very short flight, 23 miles to JFK, plus some additional vectoring. Alright, so I screwed up here. I said the takeoff power is set, but the control lock, I forgot to remove the control lock. So, that was my mistake. But easily correctable. Incidentally, the control lock is not on the checklist. I don't know why, but that device is not on the checklist, and so I miss it a lot because when I run through the checklist, I don't really pay any attention to it until I need power, and I don't have any power. So we're through 400 feet, and I'm gonna initiate the turn on course. Climbing, trying to maintain about 15% pitch, and standard rate turn. Out, and I'm going to put the nose down a little bit and engage the autopilot. So this is another screw up that I made. When I engaged the autopilot, it went to the heading mode, so I wanted to turn back to the runway heading. And I guess I didn't put it to the LNAV, so now I switched it back to LNAV, and everything's back to normal now. So I need to work on that. So the flight guidance control system in this airplane is a little weird. Is not so if you're used to flying PMDG, like Boeing style aircraft, this is completely different. This airplane has a lot of gadgets. It has a lot of electronics and a lot of cool things that make it a very interesting airplane to fly. But at the same time, things like the flight guidance control system is very tricky, and it's very quirky. You just need to learn how to use it properly, and I still don't know how to use it properly, so I make mistakes. Going through the after takeoff checklist. The landing gear is up, flaps are 0, power is set, auto feather is off, aux standby and PTU pumps are off. Engine temperatures and pressures are normal, bleeds are on and normal. Cabin temp and pressures are checked, and ice protection is set. After takeoff checklist is completed. Clouds look beautiful. So I have the Rex environment with soft clouds loaded on here with the Active Sky 2016 weather engine. pretty sunset. Gonna set the nav1 needle to the VOR. So what I like to do is I like to set the nav1 to the VOR pointing in the direction of where I'm flying. So nav1 is pointing to the direction where I'm flying, and nav2 points the direction from where I'm going. So nav2 points backwards, the needle points backwards, and the nav1 VOR1 needle points forward. So that's kind of how I know where I am, and I can maintain the distances between the points. It helps me to navigate, and also whenever there are VORs off to the side off of the flight path, I can set up a crossing VOR checkpoints just so I know that I'm still on track, and it helps me to navigate. So another screw up here. I forgot to set up the first officer's flight management computer. And that's one of the things that that's kind of difficult to do because I don't have a co-pilot, and I have to do the work of two people. But that's okay. We can manage that. So right now we're on Victor 16, approaching the Long Island Sound, somewhere over Connecticut. Actually, we're just about crossing the borderline between Connecticut and Rhode Island. Hit the water pretty soon. The next waypoint is Salem. Salem is on Victor 16. Just gonna adjust the radios, switch the frequencies, bump them up to the next frequency from standby. And adjust the frequencies to the next standby. 117.2 is the Calverton. 110.0 is Norwich, so we're going from Norwich to Calverton, and I have the Norwich dialed in to nav2 and Calverton dialed into nav1 VOR needle. Alright, so we just passed Salem. And we're flying to Curdy. Which is about 5.5 miles out. Oh no, we're coming up on Curdy now. That sunset is beautiful. So we just passed Curdy, and the next waypoint is Yoder. Curdy is still over the land. Yoder is right on the edge of the Long Island Sound. So as soon as we pass Yoder, we're going to be over the water for a short distance. And then once we hit land again, we're going to be right on top of the Calverton VOR. So I'm just switching the first officer's MFD to fuel system, so I can track the electrical system looks good, so I don't really need to look at it all the time, but I do need to monitor the fuel. And so the first officer MFD panel is a good place to set up for fuel display. And it also gives me the total fuel readout on board of the aircraft, so I don't have to squinch my eyes and look very closely at the instrument panel, so it's just kind of a nice display there. Yep. Circuit breakers look good. No problems. So we passed Yoder, and we're on the way to Cream. Past Yoder and Flib, and we're on the way to Cream. Coming up on Cream. And the next waypoint is going to be Vicky, which is 6.2 miles out. Alright, we just passed Cream and we're on to Vicky. I'm not sure what that was all about. Heard some chimes. As a matter of fact, I did forget to check. There were a couple of anti-skid alerts active on the annunciator panel, and I forgot to check that. It's another screw up, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. I don't need it in flight. I do want to know what that chime was for, because there is no indication that anything is wrong, except that maybe the airspeed's getting a little bit high, a little close to the red tape. And we're on the way to Vicky. cockpit. We have passed Vicky and we're back over the land, on track to waypoint Keyed, K-E-Y-E-D. That's about 5 miles out. And Keyed is going to be the last point before the Calverton VOR. So we're making pretty good progress. We're going to update the altimeters for JFK. The altimeter there is 3025. We're going to start slowly getting ready for the approach. We are over Long Island, a few miles away from Calverton. And once we pass Calverton, we're going to make a slight right turn to 263 degrees, and we're going to get on Victor 44. Sorry, Victor 46. We're on Victor 16 now, and we're going to turn slightly to the right to Victor 46. Minutes into the flight. There's the Calverton VOR, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gap out and start vectoring ourselves for arrival to runway 4 left. I'm going to attempt to do an ILS approach to runway 4 left, and the intersect point for 4 left is the A-Roke. A-Roke is the intersect for 4 left. To go, according to the performance computer. Plenty of fuel, everything is going great. So the next waypoint is going to be Pazta, or Pazta, P-A-Z-T-A, Pazta. Pasta. That's about halfway between the Calverton and the Deer Park VOR. Deer Park is on 117.7. The torque is set for 40%. And I'm just buffering the red speed tape, the high speed tape. Alright, so we're en route to Pasta. Ground speed is 244 knots. Off to the left is the New York Long Island Airport, MacArthur. And when we're being with MacArthur Airfield, we're going to be right at Pasta. So we're back in the cockpit. That was a little break there, a couple of flybys, but I am getting a little bit worried because we are still fairly high, and I initiated the descent from our cruising altitude of 10,000 feet. We're at 5,000 now, but I'm a little bit worried that we're getting a little bit behind schedule. We're very close to the JFK at this point, 2 miles away from Deer Park, which is really not that far away from JFK, and it looks like we just entered IMC conditions, total whiteout, looks like soup. So we're on instruments at this point, IFR. But what I'm worried about is that maybe a little bit too high we're too close to the airport, and I need to be lighting up with the approach path. So I'm gonna drop the altitude. The minimum descent or minimum safe altitude for this approach is 2,000 feet. Altitude select, and we're going to dial in vertical speed at 1,500 feet per minute just to expedite the descent, because I'm getting a little bit worried that we're not going to get down on time. It is soup out there, and we're out of it. That was quick. We're just right in the middle of the cloud layer. Alert the flight crew for arrival. Landing lights go on. Route to A-Rogue. United Express 328 November Golf. So yeah, I think I made a mistake here. I think I'm a little bit behind schedule on this arrival, but we'll see. I feel like I should be slower, and I should be lower at this point. about this airframe is that it has a lot of kinetic energy. So once the trying to bleed off the speed descending is very difficult. It's possible, but it's not easy because this airplane has a lot of kinetic energy. It has very small wing square footage, and it's just it's like a rocket. It just goes. Beautiful, gorgeous, cloud reflection in water. Nice. Up for the approach, and it's going to be ILS localizer runway 4L, 12 miles away from the AROC, which should be 2,000 feet when we arrived at that point, and we're at 3,000 feet now, so we need to drop altitude. We're going very fast. So I just turned off the LNAV. Again, the flight guidance peculiarities is you have to be careful about how you set up your system, right? So in order for me to switch it to the VOR nav mode, take it off of the LNAV, I have to put the wing heading hold enabled, basically wing level, and then I need to set up, change it to the VOR guidance or ILS localizer frequency, which is 110.9. The localizer is 110.9, and the JFK is 115.9 for the VOR. So we need to dial in 115.9 here. And that's Kennedy VOR. The localizer is 110.9. So yeah, things get busy really fast, and my speed is not coming down. I have the torque dialed back to 15%. Select the localizer, arm the localizer, intercept, bleeds on minimum, letting lights on. The JFK right in front of us now. We're on heading select. We don't have the localizer.
2500.
Did not intercept the localizer. I think we're too fast and too high, and we don't have glide slope. The runway is just in front of us. Gears down. This is not going to be an ILS approach. We'll try to shoot at me. Visual, we're going visual. So I'm going to disconnect the autopilot. Just a little bit. Alright, we're off the autopilot. I'm going to run through the before landing checklist. Landing gear is down, 3 green, condition levers are max, aux standby, PTU pumps are on, bleeds are minimal.
1,000.
Flight attendant notified, and the flaps are going to 15 degrees. Before landing checklist is complete. So I don't see Vasi or Pappy, so I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. Alright.
Sync rate.
So at this point I should be going
Sync
around.
rate. Sync rate.
Let me see
Sync
if I
rate.
can make this one.
50. 40.
It's a long runway, should be able
30.
to make it.
20. 10.
That was bizarre. That was just a bizarre approach. Another mistake, right? So I should have just looped around for another approach. I need to get back on the center line. That was horrible. "37 minutes total flight time." Taxi light is on. Switch is on taxi. It's amazing how I didn't destroy this airplane, but the landing was just horrible. I should have gone around. Alright, so where are we? Looks like pulling into the international arrival terminal. They're going to be happy to see us there, I'm sure. Engines, props going to feather, idle. Just cleaning up the instruments. Anti-ice can come off. And fuel cut off. Thanks for watching. See you next time.